خلينا نبعد المايك. سامعيني كويس؟ تمام. أول شيء بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. شو أخباركم؟ أول كويز كله جاي من شو اسمه؟ خلينا نشوف من وين جايين. أمريكي، وزارة، بريطاني. raise your hands. أمريكي؟ أوه majority. ليش للأسف؟
لا
ليش للأسف؟
احنا الاثنين امريكي.
بريطاني؟ والله minority.
opposite or
وزارة؟
كثير قليلين.
صراحة ما توقعتها. تمام. هلا settle down everybody. Settle down لو سمحتوا. هلا you guys every few weeks you're going to come across a new chapter. Well, first of all, actually, I'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Ahmed Mutaz. It's nice to meet you all. Today, me and my sister Noor are going to be no, it's not my sister. يعني metaphorical sister. المهم. تمام. Are going to be doing the tissues chapter inshallah. هلا every chapter every few weeks you're going to come across a new chapter وراح تفتح لي اياه على جود نوتس ولا البي دي اف وراح تطلع يا اخي شو هذا ومتى بدي احفظه يا الله مش حنخلص. صح ولا لا؟ كم مره صارت معكم؟ دائما. تمام. لكن شو اهم شيء؟ تيك ات، خذوها منا وانا متاكد اللي اكبر منها حيحكوا لكم نفس الشيء. كل شيء ستيب باي ستيب احسن. هلا ليش الكتاب مقسم لك اياها صور 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 صوره مش كله مره واحده هيك معطينك اياهم؟ لانه it's better to take it step by step. صراحه انا I don't recommend anybody to do the mistake of opening البي دي اف كلها مره واحده يعمل بسرعه 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 هيك. you're going to get overwhelmed شو اسمه very quickly. خذوها حبه حبه والموضوع ان شاء الله ميسر. تمام. هلا ان شاء الله كلكم دارسين صح؟ في حد مش دارس؟ شفت يعني مش مشكله، خير وبركه. تمام. المهم الماجوريتي. هلا at the end of the session there's going to be like a small quiz. It's only like 5 questions. فكونوا متابعين ان شاء الله وان شاء الله من خلال دراستكم you're going to be able to answer. و throughout the slides you're going to see a few questions we're going to ask you. اللي بي شو اسمه اللي بجاوب صح له هيرشيز هياته هون بالنص. هنرمي لكم اياها اعرف امسك. تمام. والحق ما تلحق. اول واحد يرفع ايده بشوفها اختاره. تمام. اوكي نبلش. يلا كله موجود. يلا بسم الله. Let's start with the question. What is the study of tissues called? اجتكم بالاورينتيشن صح؟ المفروض دارسين. اخر واحد هناك بلو شيد.
لا I can't see.
بلو شيد انتي ايوه. histology is that correct؟ صحيح. ارمي. مش لازم تزقف مش لازم. بلو شيد. المهم رزق. Okay, start off with the characteristics of epithelium. There's 5 main characteristics as you guys know. First of all, we start with polarity. What do you guys think polarity means? You guys took this in chemistry, صح? إنه there's 2 opposite poles. There's 2 opposite surfaces. One of them is what? The apical surface, which is going outside or looking to the external membrane or external surface. Like if you have a inner lining, it's probably looking to the inside. If it's your skin, it's looking to the outside. صح ولا لا? And then you've got the basal surface. The basal surface is the stuff that's supported by the underlying connective tissue. صح ولا لا؟ تمام. as it's attached to the connective tissue, we're going to skip ahead and look at number 4. when it says avascular but innervated, what do you guys think that means? What does avascular mean? No blood vessels. Does that mean that there's no blood flow to it? بالضبط. There is but from the connective tissue. What does that mean? It's supported by connective tissues. Let's say you have a problem with that being supported by the connective tissues. Let's say you've got cancerous epithelium. Do you think it's going to respect the underlying basement membrane? Why? بالضبط. It's going to keep reproducing and keep on mitotically dividing until it overgoes or like overtakes the basement membrane. تمام؟ going to specialized contacts. What do you guys think this means? Specialized contacts. Tight. So basically, between every cell or between every piece of tissue or cell, they are connected together. Why do you think they might need to be connected? Let's say our skin wasn't connected very tightly. What do you think might happen? بفوت الشاور كل المي بدخل فيها؟ لا طبعا. It has to be what? It has to be close together. Is it close together by tight junctions or desmosomes? You guys are going to take that in cells. Or which one does it specifically? I don't think it's covered in the book yet in tissues.
No.
تمام? It is mentioned. طيب, tell me what each one, what does it do?
Tight junction is the glue.
تمام.
Basically prevents it from stretching out.
صحيح. So you can think about your skin. You can think about your skin. It has both. صح ولا لا? Why? What does it need both? You're going to stretch your skin and at the same time it has to be waterproof. Your skin also has a special characteristic we're going to get to later. So we went through polarity, we went through specialized contact, we went through supported by connective tissues. It being supported by connective tissues, it has a little bit more detail there. How? First of all, you've got the basal lamina. The basal lamina belongs to what? The connective tissue or the epithelium? To the epithelium. تمام? This is the selective filter. We said that it's supported by blood. صح ولا لا? So if it's supported by blood, it's going to need to get its nutrients from the blood. That is going to get its nutrients from the blood because it's also avascular. So this is the filter that's like stopping anything that we don't want to get into the tissues to get in there. It's also the scaffolding for wound repair. When you get when any of your cells get damaged, it's going to go all, down where it's going to start repairing. We're going to get to the repairing part later. You've got the reticular lamina, which belongs to the connective tissue. It's basically like the mesh you can think of that is actually supporting the epithelium. كثير منكم واقفين. Is there no chairs? إذا في أي كراسي بينكم please give it to them. في كرسي هون وفي هون كمان. تمام؟ also we're gonna get to the regeneration. If our tissues did not regenerate حنشخط مرة وحضلها مشخوطة طول حياتي. It has to regenerate. Moving on. We'll actually go back. As we said, they're avascular but innervated. What does innervated mean? تمام. اللي هي when you get pricked or something on your skin, you can feel it. That's an easy way to remember. How are they nourished? You guys already said that. They're nourished by the underlying connective tissue. مين يرفع ايده؟ What part of the epithelial cells are exposed to the stomach acids? The basal is exposed to the stomach acids? The apical. Why apical? It's the? Exactly. It's the top layer. If you're going to answer, please try to raise your hand. تمام? It's the apical surface. You guys see these two big screens? This is our map for the coming session. I would like you guys to take a picture of it بس عشان تتابعوا معنا. تمام؟ بس عشان أسألكم إحنا وين لازم تحكوا لي. أوكي؟ مش تاخذوش صورة مني ولا منها، خذوا من هون. تمام. You guys done? لسه؟ يا عمي خلصنا. Oh, we will also give you the slides, but it's just so you guys can actually look at where we are right now, because you might see this and it'll look confusing. تمام. Everybody got a picture of that? Go back. تمام. when we're talking about any type of tissue, we have to name it عشان أعرف أفرقهم. So what's the first name going to be? The first name is going to be how many layers we've got of it. If we've got a lot of layers, it's stratified. If we've got one layer, it's simple. تمام. The second name is what? Based on the shape of the cell. Is it squamous, cuboidal, columnar? You might think it's easy to tell now, but realistically, when you're doing a histology section or something in the lab, which you're going to do, did you guys do it yet? Yes. تمام. You couldn't really tell what type of tissue it was. What was easier to find out? The nucleus, exactly. Researchers are usually classifying them not based on how they look physically, but how the nucleus looks like, because that stains darker, صح? What stain did you guys use, remember? ما حكولكم؟ المهم. تمام. Squamous has got flat like nucleus, and then you've got the cuboidal, which is more spherical. Columnar is more elongated or oval shaped. Remember these details because they might come in the exam. They might ask you, like, for any of the types of tissues, it has a spherical nucleus, or it has an elongated nucleus, or it has a flat nucleus. You should know. تمام. هلا starting off with our first type of epithelium, it's simple squamous. هلا this is the most simple type. You can find it in places where you need to either diffuse something, or so something needs to pass through it, or you're trying to secrete something. هلا where do you think diffusion might be important? In the air sacs. Why? Because you're trying to absorb the air in the alveoli, or it's even lining your blood vessels. هلا why should my blood vessels also be permeable? What's diffusing through it? Nutrients, other things you need to nourish your body. تمام؟ فهلا where is it? What's the function of it? It allows materials to pass through it, or it lubricates. هلا usually we have two types of this simple squamous. We've got the endothelium and the mesothelium. Endo you can think more inside, just from the word endo. Endo means inside. You should have taken this in EMS ولا ما بعرف لو وصلتوا لها إياها. تمام؟ Endo you can think about it inside the blood vessels and inside the hollow organs. So you can think about heart, lymphoid organs, and that stuff where you have an inside body cavity where you need to diffuse. The exact locations are written, but usually it's in the kidney glomeruli. Why the kidney glomeruli? Why specifically the glomeruli? تفضلي. For filtration, exactly. You've got filtration the glomeruli. I don't know if you know the function of the different parts of the kidney, but filtration happens in the glomeruli, and then going into the next one, we're gonna have what? Reabsorption. We're gonna come to that. تمام؟ the endothelium is all the way inside your blood vessels, inside your lymphatic vessels. تمام؟ And then you've got the mesothelium. The mesothelium you could think of like meso middle. تمام؟ It usually lines your body cavities. Noor is gonna get to that, which is the different types of body like linings in the inside cavities. Either that's the peritoneal or the pelvic. But basically, the serous membranes or the other membranes in your body, anything that's lining like the membrane or providing lubrication is going to probably be mesothelium. Tamam? Moving on. Now you've got the simple cuboidal. These look more cuboidal-like, but what does the nucleus look like? Spherical. Tamam? It's a little bit thicker than simple squamous, but it still allows secretion and absorption. Where do you think absorption might be important? The kidney tubules. Intestines, we're going to get to that. The kidney tubules. Why the kidney tubules? Because that's where I'm doing reabsorption. So I'm going to filter out all that I need in the glomeruli, and then I'm going to try to acquire what I need back. Like, for example, I'm going to pass all of the water through a filter. Tamam? I still need that water. Tamam? So I'm going to absorb it back in the tubules. That's kidney reabsorption. It happens in the kidney tubules. Moving on. Simple columnar is usually found in a few places, but there's two main types. You've got the ciliated and the non-ciliated. Why do you think I need something to be ciliated? What does cilia do? To propel? To propel substances or mucus. So you're going to find that in areas where you usually have a lot of mucus or something that's like lubricating. So that's going to be in the bronchi, the uterus, or the uterine tubes. Why do I need it in the bronchi? Exactly, to push the dust out and the mucus that's inside your bronchi. So when you're coughing, it's helping you to get the mucus out. All right? What about the uterine tubes? Yes, what's it doing with them? It's propelling them towards the uterus for implantation. That's why we're going to take it in year 1 or pregnancy, inshallah. Same thing with the uterus, the upper part. Tamam? It also has mucus secreting cells like the unicellular glands and goblet cells. Again, you need them. If it's going to be moving the cilia, it still needs to be producing the the mucus itself for lubrication and to protect your bronchi and inside of your lungs and alveoli from all of the dust particles. Somebody might tell me, okay, then why is the non-ciliated version in the rectum, from the stomach to the rectum, and in the walls of the kidney tubules? Why do you guys think it's not important to have cilia there? Okay, other than that?
The movement of the muscle.
Exactly. The movement of the the movement of the muscles. What's it called? Anybody know? Background information. Peristalsis, exactly. So when you're eating food, your stomach all the way down to the large intestine, it's constantly moving by peristalsis, which is the constant smooth muscles that's trying to move it downwards. So you don't really need cilia. تمام. Even in the kidney tubules, you've got natural flow, so you don't need cilia to move anything. Also, the non-ciliated type has microvilli. Tell me why I need microvilli. Increase surface area. Why do I need to increase my surface area? To increase absorption. هلا interesting fact. Do you know that your small intestine has an almost equal amount of surface area, give or take يعني, to a basketball court inside? يعني تخيلوا how much we're actually how much surface area we need just to absorb all the different nutrients we're getting. So subhanallah عن جد يعني. We have a lot of surface area from the microvilli. Again, before you answer this question, microvilli are different from cilia. How? Cilia propels. Do you know what the movement is called? Ciliary action. Did they tell you the phases? ولا not yet? تمام. Which one of the following epithelia is found in the inner lining of the pelvic cavity? Yes? Why? So why is it not? Okay, هلا is it endothelium or mesothelium? Why? It's lining the major body cavities. It's not inside your blood. It's not inside your blood vessels or lymphatic vessels. It's lining the major body cavities. What are the body cavities? Remind me. Abdominal pelvic, thoracic, cardiac, pleural. You guys took them, صح? Orientation. تمام. So it's simple squamous. Who answered? أعطيها شو اسمه. والله. Good job. هلا moving on to pseudostratified columnar. Guys, settle down لو سمحتوا. Pseudostratified columnar. هلا what does pseudostratified mean? Pseudo, the word pseudo. Fake, not real, صح? So does that mean that some of the cells are not touching the basement membrane? So some of them are like in between them? All of them are touching the basement membrane, but what's happening? What's different about them? Not all of them are reaching the apical surface. صحيح. تمام? هلا we have again ciliated version and non-ciliated. In the ciliated areas, why do you think I need cilia again? It's in the trachea to move out. Like for example, some of us when we wake up, I don't know, maybe أيوة المهم, some of us when you wake up in the morning, you get like this phlegm or something that you need to spit out. That's probably from the cilia all moving it up and from your nasal cavity that's bringing the mucus down. تمام? Over time while you're sleeping. It also has goblet cells. هلا which three types of them have goblet cells? No, which two types have goblet cells? Sorry. Both of the columnars. صح؟ تمام. هلا also the cuboidal has mucus secreting cells على ما أظن. هلا you have the ciliated version is in the trachea and the most of the upper respiratory tract again to move the mucus. هلا the non-ciliated version. طيب the male sperm carrying ducts. طب هلا in the female reproductive ducts we have cilia. Why do I not need cilia here? What else? We talked about it. Peristalsis. تمام? It's still moving by peristalsis also. Again زي ما انت حكيت تاجل اعطيه شوكولاته. تمام? It's also in the ducts of large glands. هلا going on to the stratified squamous. هلا how do I know if something is like squamous or is it stratified cuboidal or something? From the shape of the apical surface. أعطيها شوكولاتة. تمام؟ فهلا I don't really care about what's happening here. I only care about what's happening on the top. That's the surface that I'm caring about. That's the surface that's going to tell me what shape I'm looking for. هلا again, let's say I can't tell what shape it is. What will I look at? The nucleus. Like the nucleus here is what? Like you can see, بالضبط flat. So here it's flat, here it's spherical, and some along the way are oval. So I'm only going to look at the nucleus at the top. صح؟ تمام. هلا you've got two types. Why do I need these two types? First of all, you've got keratinized and non-keratinized. Somebody tell me more about what keratin does. It is a protective protein. What does it do? Okay, more realistic application. It makes it more waterproof بالضبط. تمام. So you can think about dry areas like our palms, our skin, the epidermis. Most of that is dry areas that we're going to need keratin to protect. هلا in the non-keratinized areas, you've got the moist linings of the esophagus, your mouth, the vagina, even the rectum. تمام. These are the openings that open to the outside. So we've got stratified squamous. So I still need some protection inside in case of abrasion, but I don't really need it to be that much because it's still protected by like our natural body anatomy. It's not as exposed as the epidermis, which needs to be keratinized. Moving on to the transitional. أول ما تسمع transitional directly urinary bladder. تفكرش بولا شيء. Transitional urinary bladder. Urinary bladder transitional. تمام؟ It lines the ureters, bladder, and part of the urethra. طب هلا why urinary bladder? Why do I need it to be there? For stretching, exactly. هلا لما نكون زحمانين وكل شيء وبدي اروح على الحمام, your bladder is expanded. تمام? It's going to need to expand and go back. The only type of cells that can do that, or the best at it, are the transitional epithelium. Again, they have a basement membrane. They're still supported by connective tissue, but it's more varied. Again, transitional means it's like different types of cells mixed. We don't really care about the specifics of it. Just need to know that it's stretchy. Again, the inside can be cuboidal or columnar, and then the top can be flattened, squamous-like, or relaxed. So when it's relaxed, it'll be like full. When it's stretched, all of them will look kind of flattened. Moving on. Okay, we've got a few questions. Please don't answer without raising your hand. You can't absorb nutrients in the intestine. Which cell is damaged? Cuboidal. ليش cuboidal? In the intestine. Simple columnar. Okay, somebody else give me another type. Give me specifically what type? Okay, what does it have on top? Microvilli. أعطيه شوكولاتة. وأعطيه هذا كمان شوكولاتة. تمام؟ هلا fertilized egg can't make it to the uterus. What type? Cuboidal in the uterus. What type? Why? Using what? سيريا. صحيح. أعطيها شوكولاتة. هذا أخذ خلاص بكفي. هلا okay. So we've got three. One of them has a mismatched function. Tell me which one. The transitional. What's the function of transitional? Stretching. Give me a type. Secretion is usually for which ones? Cuboidal and columnar. تمام. The transitional epithelium is present in which of the following body structures? تفضل. يا زلمه انت اللي جنبيك. يا زلمه انتوا الاثنين. سي ليش؟ ليش؟ ايوه صحيح. اول ما تشوف transitional urinary bladder transitional, بس مش يقول لك which is not. ركز في السؤال، اقرا. صارت معي كثير يقولوا لك which is not كذا وبتطلع شو اسمه بتحط transitional urinary bladder على السريع. Even in biolab, you guys are going to take the biolab final. It's going to be also on tissues. So basically the entire thing is going to be about tissues. You're going to have to see like what pictures match to what type وكذا. ف اللي هم ايوه basically they're mixed matched يعني مش they don't have a specific form. The inner lining of the vagina and esophagus is made up of which of the following types of epithelium? Stratified squamous. What type? What type? There's two types. No, ليش؟ أيوة. It's protected by what? Our just natural body anatomy. It's not as exposed as our skin. So it's B. اللي قاعد هنا. تمام. Which of the following tissues sustain friction and does not have all of their cells touching a basement membrane? does not have all of their cells touching a basement membrane. تفضلي. Stratified squamous. Why? What about the other types? صحيح. Pseudo stratified, all of them are touching. Simple, anything simple, all of them are touching. تمام؟ Same thing with the simple cuboid. إمام. تمام. هلا لو سمحتوا ركزوا معي شوي لانه الناس بتسحب على هاي السكشن وبيجي منها من الامتحان. حتى السنه الماضيه قالوا لنا انه ما راح تدخل واجا منها. تمام؟ Glandular epithelia. هلا move on to the next slide. تمام. You've got multiple types of glandular epithelia. We're gonna come to it. بس please هاي الجراف احفظوا لي اياها. تمام؟ زي ما هي. You can بتقدر تحفظها حتى in order. I thought I saw that was easier. Go back now. تمام. هلا you've got two types of glandular epithelium. First of all is endocrine. Second one is, what's the difference? Endo is secreting inside. هلا when we say inside, what does that mean? Into the blood vessels. And when we're talking about exocrine, where does it secrete? تمام. هل ايوه. طب هلا if I tell you acinar cells of the pancreas, is that endo or exo? I'm talking about acinar cells specifically. تفضلي. Why exocrine? Exactly. It's still secreted to the body cavities. It does not go directly into your bloodstream. تمام؟ هلا endocrine glands, as we said, they secrete towards the inside mainly. They're usually ductless. What does ductless means? Just directly into the blood. هاي الصورة هون. تمام؟ You can see the blood passes directly through the gland. تمام؟ Give me an example. There's so many examples. Give me an example. من هون لو سمحتوا من هون. Anybody from here? Give me an example of an endocrine gland. Thyroid. What does thyroid secrete? thyroid hormone. تفضل يا اخوي. تمام؟ So they direct. You've got the thyroid. You've got the pituitary, the hypothalamus. The pancreas has two types, as we said. هي غلطوهم اياها لما بالسبرينج لما اخذوا بايو 1 اجت acinar ايوه acinar cells والمفروض هي exocrine. Don't think just because it secretes to the inside. This one's the exception. تمام؟ acinar cells are exocrine. هلا normally exocrine glands. Give me an example of an exocrine gland. Sweat glands, salivary, sebaceous. صحيح؟ تمام. هلا why do we call them exocrine? They secrete directly to the epithelial surface. There isn't really any blood that's passing through them. It's just directly on a surface. Okay. هلا there's different types of exocrine. الوحدة اللي بالعادة الاثنين اللي بركزوا عليهم بالعادة هم merocrine وholocrine. هلا when you think mero, you say ما بعرف لو دكتور سوا probably said it. Mero like merely secreting. صح؟ حكيت نفس الشيء صح؟ Merely secreting. So it just whatever it has inside, it's directly secreting it to the surface. But for example, when we're talking about holocrine, what does that mean? Holo. The word holo. Exactly. The whole of it ruptures. So you can think that it hollows out. So it ruptures and it hollows out. Tamam? And then you've got apocrine. What does apocrine mean? It's a very minor type. تفضلي. You got it? What does apocrine? Exactly, just the surface. It can either secrete or explode, but it's usually anything that says just the surface is probably apocrine. Unicellular exocrine glands. Now you've got also all of these that we talked about before, like the thyroid, the merocrine, the holocrine, the salivary, or sweat or sebaceous glands. Those are all multicellular. Now you've got unicellular types, which we mentioned before. They are the mucus cells and the goblet cells. They're basically just sprinkled around the epithelial lining. What types had them? Pseudostratified columnar, simple columnar. لا go back. مش مشكلة. As I said here, please memorize this graph. Don't think it's not important. بالعادة they just ask you like, oh, they'll say like the sebaceous gland is what type, then you'll just say simple branched alveolar. هلا هي مقسمة بيقول لك الduct structure هون either it's simple or it's compound. Compound means there's more than one duct. As you can see, if you see here, basically the division of them in the simple is just like one. There is only one lining. But when it goes to the compound ducts, there is one. It's like a tree. It's one straight stem, and then it branches out, and then it goes to the either the tubular or the alveolar secretory structure. تمام? Here again, it's either alveolar or tubular. Please memorize this state.
This question was answered.
مش مشكلة. Salivary gland. هلا why do you guys think it's multiple ducts, multiple lobes? It is. Give me the full name. Compound tubulo alveolar. So that means it has multiple ducts. What does that mean? One branch branches out into many, and then when we go to multiple lobes, it has more than one lobe. Go back now. تمام. هلا when you see here, for example, it has if it's like simple, it's going to have just one like secreting either tube or alveolar cell or like a section. But in the salivary glands, you can see here that it has more than one sac, and then it's connected by more than one duct. Again, لو سمحتوا بس احفظوا لي الصورة، مش لازم أظني أعيد. Moving on. A 19-year-old girl is diagnosed with an infection of a holocrine gland. Which of the following glands in this girl are most likely infected? بكفي من هون. وين ما جاوبوا تفضلي. Sebaceous. Why sebaceous? ما أدري. Exactly. كويس إنك حافظة. بكفي. تمام. Sebaceous glands are the holocrine. هلا give me the types of the rest. Give me the types. You've got sweat glands. Sweat glands are what? Merocrine. Salivary are merocrine again. Sebaceous, hollow. Next.
Okay.
تمام. هلا that's done. I'm done for epithelia. Now it's time for Noor to do the connective tissue.
Okay. Hello everyone. Moving on to our special tissue, connective tissue.
Is it like can pimples be up?
ما بتحرك؟ Okay.
Because doctors are having
Okay. So connective tissue is classified into four categories. We have connective tissue proper, cartilage, bone, and blood. Now, if we're going to divide more, we have loose and dense. And then, branching even more, we have irregular, adipose, reticulate. And for dense, we have regular, irregular, and elastic. Cartilage is classified into hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. Now, I want to pinpoint an idea here is that usually in loose connective tissue proper, you guys will have more cells and less fibers. And for the dense one, we will have more fibers, less cells. That's why you will realize, the dense one, we don't have much flexibility. It's more stronger, and it can and it can withstand stress and any trauma. What makes connective tissues so special? They differentiate from other tissues in which they all come from one common origin, which is what? Mesenchyme, and it's an embryonic tissue. And all of them, they're largely composed of what? Matrix. Okay. And yeah, that's it. Okay, no, what is special about the extracellular matrix is that it is living or non-living? Non-living. Ahmed, خلاص. the structural component of connective tissue. We have cells and the extracellular matrix. Cells, you can find sometimes adipocytes, or another name for fat cells in, for example, adipose tissue. We can also have mast cells. You guys know what are mast cells? Anyone? What are they? Jovi? Section, okay. They have some granules inside of them. What is the importance of them? Okay, yeah, that's correct. So وين أحمد الثاني؟ المهم You guys need to know what are the vesicles inside of these mast cells. So we have histamine, heparin, and all of that. Know them. It's written in the book. We also have different types of white blood cells like neutrophil and lymphocytes. We also have macrophages. What are macrophages? Someone else with the glasses. جاوبي. لا تخافي. جاوبي. صح انت صح, on the right track. Okay, so they're basically phagocytes that whenever they see a pathogen they're gonna eat it, as simple as that. We also have different types of cells. We have fibroblast, chondroblast, and osteoblast. Fibroblast is responsible for making what? Fibers. What about chondroblast? Cartilage. And osteoblast? Bones. Okay, now which one is more active form, the blast or the site? Blast. So let's say, for example, we have an injury in a tissue, and we have the site, and we have the blast. Which one is going to be responsible for regenerating? The blast. Okay, that's good. And what else? So we have the ground substance. We have 3 components of that. And can anyone name the 3? Okay. Yeah. That's correct. The cell adhesive proteins are responsible for connecting the fibers along with the cells. So they're basically the bridge between them. And we also need to know الهما proteoglycans and GAGs. You guys need to know them. الهما, I think if I'm not mistaken, chondroitin sulfate and hyaluronic acid. That is mentioned in your book. In fibers, we have 3 types of fibers: collagen, elastic, and reticular. Now this is just a brief overview. Collagen fibers, they're strongest because they have tough and thick bundles. For the reticular, it's usually in organs that need more support, like the spleen. The spleen is a very vulnerable organ, and we need these reticular fibers to be able to give structural support for it. And for the elastic fibers, it is usually in skin because we need elasticity, in lungs because it expands as we breathe in, and in blood vessels because sometimes we need constriction and dilation, as we will see later on in inflammation process. And this is just a picture to show you that the matrix is full of fibers and all of that. We will have this healthy skin and in old age people. Now moving on to our first loose proper connective tissue, areolar tissue. So where can we find the most this tissue? Under skin. And why do we need it? So it can wrap and cushion organs. This is very important, guys. Usually we will find it beneath the epidermis and directly under the epithelium and also lining the mucosa. It is also part of the synovial membrane. Why? Because if you guys can notice here in one of the functions, it says that it holds and conveys tissue fluid. Between the joints, we have the synovial cavity. In this cavity, we have the synovial membrane lining, and we need some sort of fluid in that area. So the areolar connective tissue is going to be responsible for that. It is also, as Ahmed mentioned, lamina propria, if you guys remember. It is that sheet of connective tissue that is responsible for it. And it is widely distributed. So if a question comes in the exam and says, what is the most widely distributed connective tissue? What is the answer? Areolar. You are also going to notice that adipose tissue is under the skin as well. But what makes it different is that it is deeper than the areolar one. So if we are, I don't know if any of you guys took skin chapter before in high school, in which you have the epidermis and then dermis and then the hypodermis. Whatever is in the hypodermis, that is the adipose tissue. And as you guys can see here, we have the adipocytes, and most of the space is taken up by the fat droplet. So the nucleus is pushed to the side. So we'll have less fibers than the areolar one. We can find it in under skin in the subcutaneous tissue around kidneys, because our kidneys, they're very they're right under the rib cage, but some part of the kidney is not completely covered, so we need something to protect it. لا سمح الله, we did an accident, we need this adipose tissue to protect it. We have 2 types of fat as well, brown fat and white fat. Can anyone tell me what is the function of white fat? Okay, that's correct. Also, one function, important function of adipose tissue is that it keeps the body warm by basically preventing heat loss from the body, and it will provide a reserve food fuel, because we know that fats, they provide most of the energy. يعني حتى even you guys will take it later in biochemistry, they will provide more energy even than carbohydrates. So the adipocytes store this. Now we have the reticular loose proper connective tissue. In this one, the only type of fiber that we're gonna find in here is what? Reticular. Okay, and the only type of cells as well are what? Reticular cells. So in here, the fibroblasts are called reticular cells so that they can make these fibers. Here we can find it in delicate organs like the spleen, also in bone marrow and the lymph node, because these are the areas where basically we have, like in the bone marrow, there's hematopoietic stem cells, like the making of cells. In lymph nodes, there are the white blood cells. Spleen is the destruction of red blood cells. So anything related to these cells, oh my god. These fibers form a soft internal skeleton, stroma. This is a very important keyword for this part. And it has many mast cells and macrophages. Okay. And now moving on to the dance. We have 3 types. Can anyone name them again really quickly? Elastic, okay. Now what makes the dance really special is that we have parallel collagen fibers, and this will allow it to, يعني when we have like stress, when we have, it can withstand great tensile stress when pulling force in one direction, and it can be found in tendons. So basically, this is the part that connects what? Muscles to bones, ligaments, bone to bone, and aponeurosis. Aponeurosis is basically like a flat sheet on top of muscles. Now, yeah, this is just a picture to help you guys figure it out. You guys know the location, it's very important, especially for this part. And now for the dense irregular. In here we have the collagen fibers, they're arranged randomly. And this gives us that the fact that it can withstand tension exerted in many directions. So that's a key difference between what the regular and the irregular. We can find it in fibrous capsule of organs and of joints, dermis of skin, and submucosa of digestive tract. احفظوها. اللوكيشن جدا مهم. Okay. That's it. And now for the elastic one. In here, we have mostly elastic fibers that are dominating. We have the function that allows the tissue to recoil. So where can we find it if it's gonna recoil? ارفع ايدكم عشان نبص. Heart, okay. مش سامعاك. Lungs, okay, that's correct. So هلا it's not exactly in the heart, it's in the walls of the large arteries close to the heart. Why? Because the heart is pumping blood at a very high pressure, so we need these arteries to be able to stretch and recoil back to their same shape. We also have it in certain ligaments associated with vertebral column. Focus on this phrase because I'm going to go back to it. It's important. And within the walls of bronchial tubes, because sometimes we need it to constrict and dilate when we want to take more air in. Okay, this is a question. Which of the following statements is incorrect? Okay, you can answer. Answer. Okay. The last one, that's correct. Okay, so we're going to discuss each one of them. Now, we mentioned this. We know the function that it soaks up excess fluid related to the synovial membranes. And the dense regular can withstand a lot of stress because it is in regular collagen fibers, plays a role in thermoregulation because it what prevents heat loss. And the only type of cells seen in a tendon is fibroblast because it's mostly fibers. And the shape of a person's ear is due mainly to what? What is the correct answer? Elastic. That's correct. Okay, now we're moving on to cartilage. The main major cell in cartilage is what? Chondroblast. And it is avascular, so that means what? It does not have any blood source, right? And it lacks nerve fibers. So how will it get nutrients if it lacks blood? Perichondrium, that's correct. So the surrounding membranes. شو بعمل؟ وين الشوكولاتة؟ Okay, the matrix is 80% water, so it's easy to rebound after compression. The locations for this one is so important. It will form most of the embryonic skeleton, cover the end of long bones. I don't know if you guys remember, Dr. Osama, she mentioned long bones, always what? Hyaline cartilage. And it forms costal cartilage of the ribs, cartilage of the nose, trachea, and larynx. Why the trachea? Because the trachea is basically the windpipe, and you need those rings of cartilage. عشان without them, it's basically gonna collapse. So it's there for support. And it's a and it resists compressive stress. Yeah, that's
Or basically, if you don't know what it is and it's cartilage, it's probably hyaline. If you don't know what it is and it's proper, it's probably areola.
بالضبط. now to elastic cartilage. It is similar to hyaline, but it has more elastic fibers in its matrix, and it maintains the shape of the structure while allowing a great flexibility. So there are only two locations of this type of cartilage. Where can we find it? In the ear, okay, and epiglottis, okay. And moving on to fibrocartilage, it is basically the function for it is that the tensile strength allows it to absorb compressive shock. So we can find it where? In the intervertebral disc. If you guys remember, in the dense elastic one, we mentioned that we have what? It is in the certain ligaments of vertebral column. And between each vertebral disc, we have an intervertebral disc. In that one, we have this specific type of cartilage. Why? So it can absorb any shock, any compressive shock, yani, if there was an accident. It is also in the pubic symphysis, so that it can protect the urinary bladder and the internal sex organs and all of that, and the disc of the knee joint. So again, what are the three locations for this one? I need more people. وين مفيش حدا؟ Okay. Intervertebral disc. Okay. Who can name the second one? Okay, answer. Okay, discs of the knee and pubic symphysis. Okay, excellent. Guys, any homeostatic imbalance that you find in the book, understand it, memorize it like your name. It is very important.
زي ما هي تحفظها. Homeostatic imbalance. Most of the questions actually, if you get a clinical question, you get a clinical type question, you're gonna say like patient of كذا كذا كذا. More than likely, it's probably one of the homeostatic imbalances.
Okay, here's a question. Select the correct statement regarding cartilage.
Frequent answers. وقفوا شوي. Give an opportunity for the other guys.
مين في أي حد؟ جاوبتي قبل؟ لا بدي حدا جديد. اوكي انت. No. Okay, wait. Hold on. Okay. More answers? Okay, the correct answer is all of them are correct. يلا. By the way guys, the options that I got هدول من ideas من شفت يعني شفت أسئلة و I got these ideas و arranged them, so it's important يعني when you're reviewing the slide, go over them again. And now bone. It is made up of hard. شوي بس الصوت لو سمحتوا. صوت. Okay. The bone, it is hard calcified matrix containing many collagen fibers. One thing I forgot to mention is that اللي هما cartilage and bone both have their cells in lacuna. Lacuna is basically a small cavity or a small room in which the cells can just rest there. In here we have osteocyte. It is residing in the lacuna. Also, mainly know the structure in your biolab. You need to know these structure, هو lamella and the central canal. Know all of that. And just know the function. We know this. Provide livers for the muscles عشان هم basically the foundation, and then the muscles are gonna be right over them. And stores calcium and fat. Fat is very important. Why? Because الفات هون is in the, if I'm not mistaken, spongy part of the bone. You will know later about it. And we have marrow inside these bones. And what is the bone marrow responsible for? Producing cells. Okay. And now we're going to, it's also well vascularized. So that means its regenerative capacity is high or low? High. And now to our special connective tissue, which is blood. Why? Because it's a liquid. It's not solid in here. And it has red and white blood cells. And its matrix is what? Plasma. It transports respiratory gases, nutrients, waste, and other substances. And it has no production of fibers in its extracellular matrix. You have a question? No, not yet. You'll take it in bite. In here, no production of fibers, but I want to point out one thing is that you have soluble proteins in your blood. These soluble proteins will be converted into insoluble once you have an injury. And these insoluble proteins will form a clot to basically prevent the leakage of blood from, let's say, this blood vessel injury. That's it, I guess. Yeah. Okay, الجواب واضح. Can someone explain it? I'll give him the mic. You can?
What? Yeah.
Explain the question.
The question. I can explain the answer.
Okay, explain the answer. Why do you think it's correct?
I thought isn't correct. Sorry.
Okay, we're gonna discuss it together. All of the following statements are correct regarding bone tissue, except what? Bone has the blood cell forming tissue, which is what? Hematopoietic cells, right? Neurovascular structure passes through the central canal. This is the thing that I was pointing out to. And bone matrix consists of collagen fibers and calcium. We know this. But osteoclasts are responsible for matrix formation? No. Clast from your EMS, it means breaking. Bone breaking, yes. And what is the opposite word that means formation? Blast. So that's why it's incorrect. Pay attention. شوفوا يعني هي الجملة كاملة صح، اجوا على آخر الكلمة.
طيب. هلا going into the muscles. هلا you're gonna take an entire chapter about this. Actually, it's a very interesting topic. صراحة, it's most of our year's favorite chapter from Bio 2. Bio 1, sorry. Bio 1 صح? Bio 1, تمام. هلا you've got 3 types of muscles. But before I actually get into this, I want you guys to remember 3 words, تمام? Or 3 things. You might take an EMS, well maybe you haven't taken them yet. Osteo يعني شو؟ bone. Myo chondro. طب هلا if I tell you what is cartilage nourished by? The perichondrium. تمام. We're gonna get to that. بس هلا what is the sorry, even for cardio it's like endocardium. تمام. So please memorize حتى من EMS. بعرفش مين اللي حكاها انه EMS ممكن تفيدك. You're right. EMS is going to help you out a lot actually in your coming exams, because why? It's the basics of what you're going to understand. It's a new language basically. Please حتى focus a little bit in EMS so you can answer it. مثلا if you weren't focused you wouldn't know what osteoclast meant, because osteoclast comes in another chapter you're going to take later. تمام. هلا going into the muscles, you've got 3 main types. You've got skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle. هلا we talked about peristalsis before. Can you feel peristalsis? Like إذا ما حد حكى لك عنها ما راح تعرف عنها صح؟ ليش؟ Because it's involuntary. هلا what of these 2 are involuntary? Cardiac and smooth. شغل مدارس يا عمي سهل صح؟ تمام. هلا going into skeletal is the only one that's voluntary. It has striations. Why does it have striations? it's following the myofilaments. Again, you're gonna take a specific chapter just about this one block, or the lines basically are the myofilaments. The myofilaments are the things that are actually making your muscles contract. Exact details you don't have to know now. Going into the cardiac muscle. In the cardiac muscle, it's branched and has intercalated discs. What are intercalated discs? Intercalated discs, what are they? حد يرفع ايده ويجاوب مظبوط. Junctions, what do they do?
Uninucleate.
What do they do? Why do I need them? Connect and communicate. تخيل جزء من قلبي is going to contract من هون وجزء مش حيعيش. ولا حد فينا حيعيش. All of them have to be what? In sync. All of them have to contract together. So I'm going to need intercalated discs which are going to connect them all together and basically communicate them. The junctions between them, do you know the type? Gap junctions, exactly. That's the one that allow communication between nearby cells. You have you also have them that they're branching uninucleated. Please know the types of nucleus. زي الepithelium وزي الconnective. You need to know the types of the nucleus. Here they're generally يعني clear. تمام. You've got skeletal muscle which is multinucleate. It's the only one that's multinucleated. And then you've got cardiac and smooth muscle are also are uninucleated, but in the cardiac it's branching and it's striated, but in the smooth muscle it's basically spindle shaped. When you look at it here, when you look at this picture for example, it looks kind of like a spindle, so it's like very thin at one side, thick, and then thin again. تمام. Another word for spindle, they kind of confused last year's batch with them, was spindle also means fusiform. If you hear the word fusiform, that also means spindle. أول ما تشوفها اعرف إنها smooth muscle. تمام. Again, smooth muscle have central nuclei. They're responsible for peristalsis. Cardiac muscle is for your heart. Skeletal muscle is just all around your flesh and muscles. تمام. هي main one that's voluntary. Moving on. صحيح. Cells of the intestinal wall look like? The cells of the intestinal wall? Smooth, صحيح. So what type of nucleus? Uninucleate. What type? What does it look like? Central nuclei. So they're in the middle. تمام. They're not on either edges. They are directly in the middle of the cell. You can tell from the picture. تمام. multinucleate, when they're multinucleated, they're all spread out. Okay. Okay, in the intestine, going back to epithelium, what was the type? Simple columnar. Columnar. Simple columnar. Non-ciliated. Microvilli. I need the surface area, صح? تمام. Moving on. We've got the nervous tissue. This is only a small section. Again, you're going to take an entire chapter about this. مو حلو بالضبط. بس ميسر إن شاء الله. تمام. Here you've got neurons. Neurons send and receive signals. If you hear receive, dendrites. If you hear send, axons. So the dendrites are the small projections from the cell itself. You can think they're closer to the nucleus. Axon is the one-way pathway that they're going. تمام. That's the send. Where are they? Brain, spine, and usually just nerves all around your body. You also have supporting cells. You'll know more about them later. But for now, you just need to know that there are supporting cells, and what they do, they just support the neurons and they're non-conducting cells, so they don't actually participate in in sending the signal. They're just there to emotional support. Go on. Moving on. Which of the following muscle tissues is found in large arteries? بكفي من هون. I want someone didn't answer before. Why smooth? Involuntary and بالضبط. It's basically the one responsible for any involuntary movement. That's not the heart. in the basic, again, it's not cardiac. Cardiac is only in the heart. It's not in anywhere but the heart. تمام. Smooth muscle is just generally everywhere else.
Okay.
Now going into the different membranes of the body.
Okay. So for different membranes, we have 3. Can anyone name them quickly before we start? البنت اللي بالحجاب البينك. Okay. You're right. Okay. Thank you. هلا we will start with the cutaneous membrane, which is basically what the skin. It covers the body surfaces. It is made up of what type of epithelium? Keratinized or non-keratinized? Keratinized. And below it we have what type of tissue? Shush. Areolar connective tissue. And then right below it, okay, قبل الدنس, okay, صح, adipose, because it is what? Subcutaneous, or we can say hypodermis. هلا related to mucous membrane. أول ما تشوف كلمة mucous أعرف إيش? It is open to the outside. So if it is open to the outside, it's going to be wet. And what type of epithelium is usually like that? علي صوتك. No. يعني for example, your mouth from the inside. Non-keratinized, that's correct. Okay. In here, basically, we have the nasal cavity, we have the mouth, and also whatever is related to the urinary system is also open to the outside. It is lined by the mucous membrane, and it will release a mucus, for example, where in the respiratory system and in your digestive system. In urinary, it does not secrete any mucus there. And okay, we can move on. And now moving to the serose, which is basically what? Closed cavity. Now for this one, you guys took an EMAS, في 3 cavities that we know. The one that is around the heart is called what? Pericardium. What about the lung? Pleura. And abdominal organs? Peritoneum. Great. Now this one is related to the ventral body cavities, in which we have 2. We have parietal and visceral. So I want you guys to imagine with me, whatever is lining this whole room, this is what the visceral. And whatever is lining this room from the outside, يعني من برا, this is what? Parietal. So if we're gonna imagine, for the pericardium, whatever lines the heart from the outside is what? Visceral pericardium. And now whatever lines the pericardial cavity itself is what? Parietal pericardium. We're gonna apply the same to the pleura, بس انتوا هتحكوا لي. Now the visceral is gonna line what exactly? Is it the chest wall cavity ولا the lung itself? Lung itself, okay. And the parietal is what? The chest wall cavity من الجوا يعني. هلا peritoneum. Let's take the liver for example. Whatever lines the liver is what? Visceral peritoneum. And whatever lines اللي هو abdominal wall itself, that is what? Parietal peritoneum. Here we have some questions. So what separates the parietal and visceral? The certain fluid that is released. So now each layer in here, if we go back to the epithelium, if you guys remember, كان عندنا endothelium and mesothelium. And here it's which type? Mesothelium. So it is simple squamous, صح? Okay. What kind of membrane is composed of connective tissue but not epithelial cells? These type of questions, maybe you guys don't know much about synovial. It's written بالكتاب, but most of us ignored it last year. Read it. هي آخر إشي تقريبا. Cutaneous, we know that it has what? Epithelium, and under it we have connective tissue اللي هو الإيش? Dermis. And then for the mucous, we also know that it has both. And the same applies for the serose اللي هو simple squamous, بعدين under it submucosa and all of that. The only one that we can cancel is what? Synovial membrane. And there is an additional question, which is the stomach is lined by what? No, I just want the name of the membrane. Okay. And it is covered by what? Wait, guys, you confused me. Stomach, visceral, peritoneum, which is serose, and then it is covered by mucus. Okay. Now tissue repair. We have 2 classified ways. We have regeneration and fibrosis. For regeneration, it will replace the lost cells by the same kind of exact cells. أما fibrosis, it's gonna be replaced by scar tissue. What is the problem with scar tissue? إنه yes, and it prevents the normal function قبل يعني على الفاضي. And غير إنه it prevents the normal function لا it shrinks over time يعني two disadvantages at the same time. Now we have regeneration. This is very important. كتير مهم, and you guys need to know that it starts from deep till the most superficial. We have the inflammation and scab formation. First, the trauma causes the injured tissue cells, mast cells, or others to release inflammatory chemicals that will basically make nearby capillaries leaky. Why do we need them to be leaky? For what? Yes. And also other types of cells, including, we mentioned one thing in blood that we need when we have an injury. لا, there's something. Macrophages, okay, but we need something to seal. Soluble proteins. They will be converted into insoluble to form اللي هو الclot. Okay. Anyway, they will basically seep into the injured area. Now, clotting will seal off the injured area and prevent any bacteria from spreading to other places. And the surface of the clot will be exposed. يعني هتشوفوها هناك يعني it's a scalp obviously. And now the second step is organization will restore the blood supply. How will we restore it? By something called granulation tissue. Granulation tissue basically has اللي هم fragile capillaries, and this is so that we can supply the area with blood. لأنه if we don't supply it, it's gonna eventually die. Now, basically, granulation tissue later on is going to be replaced by epithelial cells. Is it on the slide? No, okay, not here. And now the fibroblast will multiply and produce growth factors and collagen fibers. They might ask you, what do these fibroblasts produce? Growth factor and collagen fiber. Why? So that it can bridge the gap that has happened as a result of the injury. Now, when healing is complete, the fibroblast can convert to what? Fibrocyte, اللي هم what less active form of them, or some of them can just suicide. Macrophages will phagocytize dead and dying cells, will surface epithelial cells will multiply and replace the granulation tissue. And now regeneration. The fibrosed area will mature and it will basically contract. Why it will contract? To close, okay. And what else? To pull them close. Yeah, okay. And the result of that is a fully regenerated epithelium with an underlying area of scar tissue. And the scar may be visible as a white line and depending on the severity of the wound. Guys, this is very important. You need to know the sequence. So أول إشي إيش حكينا? Inflammation. Inflammation will lead to what? Leaky blood capillaries. هيجيبوا الأشياء الجيش الأمة كلها هاي for clotting. بعدين scab will form. After the formation, organization for the blood supply. Later on, fibrosis و regeneration هدول آخر step. Fibrocytes convert to fibroblast to replace basically the connective tissue that was damaged. And the epithelial cells will divide. اللي بده يطلع بهدوء لو سمحت. The epithelial cells will divide and replace the granulation tissue. Okay, can you explain this? Guys, this is a mnemonic so that you can be able to memorize the steps, the tissue's regenerative capacity. So here's it, right over here. And this is what it stands for. So epithelial, bone, areolar, and dense irregular, they regenerate so well. Why? Because they are vascularized. اللي هم smooth muscle with dense regular, moderate capacity because يعني يا دوب وصلهم شوي. Partially vascularized, and then skeletal muscle and cartilage هدول weak. يعني أنت if you have an injured cartilage, you cannot replace it. And there will be cardiac muscle and nervous tissue هدول أكثر إشي that are poorly vascularized. يعني if let's say لا سمح الله someone had a heart attack and this tissue cardiomyocyte is basically does not have any blood there, خلاص it will die and it will not be replaced by the same type. Instead, a scar tissue will be formed. And the same for nervous tissue because nervous أصلا does not divide in cells now.
Hello, real quick, just to explain the mnemonic. عباد SD SKC CN أو عباد سهلة SD SKC CN. عباد YE epithelial. Epithelium, you guys know there's plenty of blood supply. تمام. It's avascular, but how is it regenerating? By the underlying connective tissue. تمام. B, you've got bone, in the central canal, you've got all of that vascularization and nerves. And then in A, that's areolar. Areolars everywhere. If it can't regenerate, رحنا فيها, it needs to regenerate properly. And then you've got D. هلا if you think about dense irregular, في عندنا D هنا و D هون. How am I going to separate them? Dense irregular. What is dense irregular? What's the most notable ones? The dermis, تمام. The dermis regenerates well. You guys can see it. If you get scratched anywhere, it will quickly regenerate. But the dense regular, which is your tendons, ligaments, that stuff, it takes more time. اللي بيصير عنده مثلا tendonitis ولا رباط صليبي ولا كذا, it takes more time. But you can think about dermis is up, so it regenerates better. And then which is the dense irregular. Then you've got the dense regular, which is your moderate capacity of regeneration because it's poorly vascularized. And then here you've got SKC, SS, but smooth is up because it has more of a capacity to regenerate. But in skeletal muscle, it doesn't really regenerate. What happens when you go to the gym? It's what hypertrophies. It's not hyperplasia. Hyperplasia means abnormal growth, so it's growing too much. If you have hyperplasia, it means it's going to be like bumpy. Oh, there's going to be a lump here and a bump there. So usually it's just hypertrophy. تمام? So عباد, SD, SKC, CN. CN normal. No, cardiac tissue, as our sister explained, cannot regenerate. Is going to be what? If it can't regenerate, what's it going to be replaced by? Scar tissue. So if you, again, as we said, if I have a problem in my heart and I got scar tissue, it's not going to be able to beat as effective as before because it's not the same type of cell. Same thing with nervous tissue. Everybody knows nervous tissue cannot mitotically divide. That means it can't regenerate. عباد, SD, SKC, CN. كمان مرة. عباد, SD, SKC, CN. قولوا لي إياها. يعطيكم العافية. Moving on. The skin will most likely repair completely by regeneration, as we said. So that goes for the epithelium on top, the subcutaneous, and then the dermis. تمام? Which is dense, irregular. صح? Cardiac tissue will get replaced by scar tissue, as we said, because it has a low ability to. حتى ممكن تفكر مثلا طيب الكاردياك مسل كل الدم الدنيا بمر منه. ليش؟ Because the lining is thick, it doesn't really get its nourishment from there. It gets its nourishment from something you're going to find out, inshallah, in the CVS chapter bio 2. انسى. تمام? So as we said, it goes from poor to great regeneration. Nervous, muscle, dermis. تمام? It's the same thing here. If it tells you clinical, please know the homeostatic imbalance. Most of the time it's going to tell you like, oh, patient had a injury in this area. تمام? So the injury in this area cannot regenerate. What's it going to get replaced by? Scar tissue. The scar tissue is going to hamper the function. Moving on. هلا.
Wait. Hold on. Can I say something?
تفضل.
Okay, guys, before we begin with the few questions, I just want to point out, if there's something you cannot memorize, try to understand it. Try to, locations هدول they're very important. They can get you a question, bring a whole case, مش عارفة إيش صار له كل الحالات، وبالآخر يسألك where can we find it؟ بكل بساطة. So memorize it like your heart. If you can't memorize, understand. Once you understand, you will 100% remember it. احكي لي. كيف نحفظ؟ شوفي. Understand. If you don't understand, make this most stupidest mnemonic. والله العظيم. And make it related to you. يعني عادي سمي أهلك، سميه أحمد أريولر. Literally